Welcome back to AskPrebuilt, the series where I answer your questions. If you want your question answered in the next video, be sure to mark it with AskPrebuilt so I can find it later. Also, happy 5th week in a row to this series. You guys are doing great at giving me free content. I thank you ever so much. It really does help when 7 Days to Die hasn't had an update in like 15 months. Anyway, on to the questions. The Freakish Geek wants to know, how does heat work? I'm new to the game and don't understand it. Your channel's my first stop when I have questions, so I think breaking it down would help a lot of us new Alpha 20 players. Love your channel either way, keep up the great work. Thank you. So basically the way heat works is that every time you do some kind of loud action like firing a gun, breaking metal, or using an auger, the heat of a chunk, which is the area of the map you're in, goes up. And it also goes up passively if you have things like forges and chemistry stations going. When the heat in a chunk reaches 100%, there is a chance for a screamer to spawn. I'm not 100% sure what that chance is, but I know it's definitely not 100% chance. And then it goes back down to 0. What screamers do is they basically walk towards you when they spawn in, and if they see you, they will scream and spawn a horde. And this horde will run towards that scream location, and sometimes the horde itself will have more screamers in it, meaning it can escalate quite a bit. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of what heat does in 7 Days to Die. Matt B wants to know, what does more damage as a club mod, the burning shaft or the barbed wire, burn or bleed? So I tested this on insane difficulty and adventurer difficulty to see if difficulty mattered, and it didn't, and what it came to was that when the bleed activates on a club's barbed wire, it will do 40 damage over 20 seconds, which is unique to the barbed wire mod, because that means it actually applies double the bleed damage a normal bleed stack would do, and this is regardless of deep cuts or difficulty. But the burning shaft does about 15 damage, again, regardless of perks and difficulty. So barbed wire by far does way more damage, neither have a 100% chance to activate though. But bleed does also seem more common, and it's definitely more valuable to do power attacks as it's almost twice as likely that way. Lion Lou wants to know if there is a maximum level you can cap out to in 7 Days to Die. Can you theoretically get all the perks in the game eventually? Yeah, you can. The max level in 7 Days to Die is 300, meaning you'll have 299 skill points, and you'll also have 4 left over from the tutorial quest. With every perk in the game unlocked, you should still have 24 skill points left. Even with the new perks coming in Alpha 21, you should still have more skill points left over. So yes, you can get all the perks in 7 Days to Die, currently, in one playthrough. AlexCat6 wants to know, when did you first play 7 Days to Die? I wanted it since Markiplier released his Blood Moon Every Night video. I first played 7 Days to Die back on Xbox in 2017. I started playing a couple of weeks before the last actual content update it ever received, which was the one that added drawbridges to console. G3 Synth wants to know, have you ever done a complete playthrough of various 7 Days to Die overhaul mods like Darkness Falls, Undead Legacy, etc? If not, why? I would personally enjoy seeing you struggle just a little bit with some of the more brutal settings on some of the overhaul mods, particularly Darkness Falls, or any overhaul that is focused on enhancing combat or making it deadlier, since you seem so unimpressed with vanilla at this point. I have not done complete playthroughs of any of those mods, and the reason is pretty simple. I don't have the time to play them to that extent. Or rather, I don't want to waste my free time on more 7 Days to Die. I play things that aren't 7 Days to Die to get away from 7 Days to Die, so I don't get completely burned out on making 7 Days to Die videos. So if I'm playing 7 Days to Die, I'm making content on it, and modded content just doesn't do as well as vanilla most of the time, so I don't do it. The only time it's really worth making content on those big overhaul mods is in the first couple of months that the mod is updated to the new alpha, because it gets a big spike in new players who basically only play that mod, or new players who want to play that mod for the first time. Darkness Falls, Undead Legacy, Rebirth, they're all great mods, but I don't make content on things that have less viewers than 7 Days to Die, as I said in the last video, and those inherently have less players because only a fraction of the player base plays modded at all, and an even smaller fraction is going to be playing those specific mods. So, not willing to use my spare time on more 7 Days to Die, and I'm not willing to appeal to a smaller audience in my content. No plans to play or create content on overhaul mods at the moment. Cue those delusional comments I sometimes get from people who think that the majority of the 7 Days to Die player base actually plays modded, with their source being "trust me bro." I actually poll my audience on this pretty frequently, and the numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for modded 7 Days to Die videos at sacrifice. Clareberry wants to know, do you play permadeath or do you just respawn? Permadeath. I find what limited tension is left in 7 Days to Die is completely removed after you've died once in a playthrough, because what's the point of even still playing at that point? There's no new content for me to experience, so the only thing in it for me is trying not to die. So if I die, what's the worst that can even happen? I might as well restart and have a little bit of tension there. Grim Haze wants to know if I'm going to be playing with the added difficulty of the Twitch integration style at any point. I hate Twitch integration for a variety of reasons, the least of which is the added difficulty from it. It's genuinely just the most boring and pointless thing I've ever played. Probably interesting for about an hour and then everyone involved is a bit bored of it, and the Fun Pimps seem to be allocating about 157% of their resources to making this feature, which is absolutely amazing, of course, and it makes total sense given that 7 Days to Die has a peak viewer count of like 45,000 on Twitch ever, and an average viewership every 7 days of about 1,000, which is kind of just sad. I mean, Ark has a peak viewership of 400,000 and an average of 2,000, and it doesn't waste any of its resources on Twitch integration despite having twice that audience. I mean, it's just embarrassing that the Fun Pimps believe that 7 Days to Die is relevant enough on Twitch to justify years of work on this useless feature. You can actually see on this Twitch tracker graph that it's done next to nothing to help 7 Days to Die's performance on Twitch. Twitch just doesn't respond well to 7 Days to Die, and adding in this Twitch integration has done absolutely nothing for it. The average viewers are about the same as they were in 2019, so why does this feature exist? Why does it get so much attention from the developers? No idea, there's absolutely nothing odd about how much attention this feature gets from the developers of 7 Days to Die. Nothing suspicious at all, nothing weird going on here, nope, nothing, nada. Nope, completely normal, it's just a bad decision they made one time. Glicious wants to know, is 7 Days to Die good with VR or not? So after some checking on the internet about this, 7 Days to Die doesn't have VR support as far as I'm aware, at least not officially. So for that reason, I can't say I really know how good it is. I have to imagine it sucks though. Doesn't seem like a very fun VR game. Drabor wants to know if demolition zombies can spawn naturally outside of Horde Nights, and can the run and gun perk be used to make you reload faster? Yeah, the demolition zombies can spawn naturally. It is very rare though, it's only happened to me once, and it was when I was a very high game stage, and one came in from a downtown section of a city, which is where all the scarier stuff spawns in the wild. I also saw it happen once to Guns, Nerds and Steel in one of his early Alpha 20 streams as well. I haven't seen it since. It might have happened again, but I didn't see it. And the run and gun perk doesn't increase your reload speed, but it does increase your speed of movement while you are reloading, or rather it gets rid of the movement penalty for doing it. Abderrahmane Benali wants to know, what is the best way to deal with feral zombies? I'm playing on hardcore 7 Days to Die and I've died like 10 times because of them. Number 1, grenades. Particularly contact grenades are very good at wiping out big clumps of zombies and ferals. Of course, if you've got a fully automatic weapon of some kind, that's going to solve your problems pretty quickly. And of course, blocks can always be used to buy you some time. Really though, your best bet is just getting your melee weapon perks upgraded as far as you can, and getting a good melee weapon and maybe combining that with some good armor, and at that point, ferals aren't really much more dangerous than regular zombies. They kind of take like an extra hit to kill at that point, and it's just not that much to worry about once you get later on in the game. Tutankhamu wants to know, what would be your favourite Valheim feature to have in 7 Days to Die, and vice versa. So Valheim needs a take-all feature for its inventory, I think. That would be one of the limited things from 7 Days to Die I can think would need to be there. And as for things that would translate pretty well from Valheim to 7 Days to Die, there honestly isn't much I can think of, but an auto run feature is something that is pretty requested among 7 Days to Die players, and Valheim has that, so maybe we could see that. Otherwise though, I don't think there's much that could be translated over. I'd be interested in hearing everybody else's thoughts on that though, because maybe I'm just not thinking hard enough. Zlayton Morrison wants to know, if it was up to me, how would I go about balancing traders within the current game, thinking Alpha 20 specifically at the moment. I tend to do playthroughs now and not use them as they are ridiculous, as are the mission and tier rewards in combination with max out better barter and daring adventurer. So it's really obvious, but the easiest thing you can do is give them a duke limit on how much they can buy from you, which you see in games like Skyrim and Fallout, and that would go a long way in reducing their effectiveness quite a bit already. You did mention that this was only about Alpha 20 specifically, but I think we do need to consider that Fun Pimps are already removing the secret stash in Alpha 21, so that should massively help out with their power levels. It's not a decision I would have made, but it is one we could make to make it a little bit less powerful. As for making quests less effective, I think that's pretty simple. Just reduce how quickly you can progress in those tiers. Maybe instead of 7 quests, they put it back up to like 10, like it was in Alpha 19. You do need to be very careful with trader changes though, because too many nerfs and they do become utterly worthless. But slowing down the quest progression and limiting their stocks of dupes would bring them down a notch for sure. Truthseeker asks, what is your favourite kind of music? I wrote a tweet about this like a year ago that I feel answers this question pretty well. And I quote, "The most borderline unlistenable bass-boosted vocal manipulated hyperpop I can physically find. You don't want to hear my music taste? Stop asking me about it, it's embarrassing. I am the friend that you do not, under any circumstances, let pick the music. I am a threat to civilized society, and I should not exist. I am not above breakcore. I will be taking no further questions. Except I actually will. If you have a question for the next AskPrebuilt video, be sure to put AskPrebuilt in the question so that I can find it. Did you know that my patrons and members get early access to these videos? If that interests you, the link will be in the description. Speaking of which, thank you to my channel members and patrons for making these videos possible, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.